Welcome to Grow, Kill, and Adapt. I'm your host, Ryan Alden, and today we're going to have Matt Lingafelt discuss with us about what it looks like to reach out to youth past Wednesday nights. Matt, what's up, man? How are you doing today?
Good, real good. How are you?
Good, man. So we maybe you could start us off by telling us how you got involved a little bit with Refuge, how our relationship has formed in this last couple of years, and then we can get into our subject matter, which is talking about how to reach youth outside of our Wednesday night settings.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in the church. As soon as I hit junior high, I went into the youth program, which at the time is actually called Refuge as well. So going there from 6th all the way up through 12th grade. Something we loved to do was after service, we would go to the local field and we would play either soccer or some football, ultimate frisbee, and that was a huge part of what we did at the Refuge at the time. Fast forward to now I'm a leader, I'm helping out. It's now Refuge Youth Network, and us as a staff have been developing these programs that we're working through now. And then that's kind of where you and I met, as you guys brought me on board as a program coordinator. And through that time, just learning some new models you guys have been implementing, and kind of had to roll with the punches in that way.
Yeah, you definitely had to roll with the punches. We had to build a job description attached to Matt's position. And so some of that was trial by fire, trial by error, a bunch of different things. We started off with a grand idea of, hey, we need to reach kids outside of their regular setting. And then as we've grown into where we are now, what works, what doesn't work, and how do we make it operate? So thanks for running that trial with us. I mean, I know it was crazy. We started with, hey, Matt, why don't you run 16 groups and try to figure out how to make this all work and find the volunteers and find all those other pieces. One, because that pressure was on me because it's a model that we had before, but then also now we're in a place of, hey, these are the things that we've learned that work well, and we need to walk in those things instead of trying to build things that we're not, right? So that's a big deal. Right. And I know we've had a lot of conversations back and forth about when you walk away from youth group, what do you remember, right? We've talked about those experiences and those relationships and things like that. And I just want to ask you real quick, what do you see when it comes to reaching out to kids past your normal weekly setting that you feel like actually works, whether it's from Refuge, from other people? What do you feel like works?
I think the biggest thing is building relationships. A big part of what we do does happen at our campuses, but I believe probably the bigger impact happens beyond the campuses. It's about having experiences. It's about living life together. Like I said, growing up, yes, I was at campus every Wednesday night, but what happened beyond campus was what impacted me the most. It was about, my leaders really investing in me. They weren't just invested on a Wednesday night, but outside of Wednesday night, they were invested in me as a whole person, growing relationships, just hanging out, just talking about life, just doing life together. And that, I believe, is the biggest impact it's had on me, and as well as our students as well.
Yeah, that's good, man. I really do appreciate watching it when natural relationships kind of form from the campus setting to then all of a sudden we're into, hey, do you want to come over and play video games? Do you want to connect? Right. And one of the things that we saw was our leaders were trying to dive into what were the options, what could they do, what couldn't they do, what was kind of regulated by us. And we said, what would be better is if we just kind of formed things that made sense and added leaders to them. So that way we wouldn't be in a place of, well, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do this, but I want to. Right. And instead said, well, let's get some information from the kids, right? So the programs that we're running right now at Refuge, kind of walk us through what programs we have now versus when we started.
Yeah, when we started, it was just kind of like we put together this massive survey of basically every activity we could come up with, and we just wanted to see what they were interested in, because we did start out letting them know, hey, we're going to do this program, we're going to do this sport. It was just kind of hit or miss whether students would show up. Sometimes 0 students would show up, or sometimes a good amount of students would show up. So we tried to put a little bit more organization together with it. So we surveyed a bunch of kids, see where their interests lie, and we went from there. Some of the programs we're running now, right now, we're actually currently running a fitness group with Dorman Sports. And they've been,
thanks to Dormans. Seriously, you guys are great, and it's awesome to have you guys help us out.
Yeah, it's awesome. So that's one of our community partners, and it's been going great. We're at the tail end of it now. We're going to do another session come the spring, but we have 10 to 15 students now really invested in that, and it's been a wild ride just to see how that has developed into something really successful when planning goes into things, and really after looking at the interests of the kids. Also, something we're doing is a dodgeball tournament. We had a rec league not too long back, and the only thing the kids wanted to do, even though we gave them so many different options we could do in a gym setting, was play dodgeball. So they liked it so much that we decided, well, let's not fight it, let's just roll with it. And that's the whole point of grow, adapt, kill. That's the adapting part of it. So we decided, hey, let's have a dodgeball tournament. So that's something that's coming up here as well.
Yeah, I was actually not drafted for a very long time. I felt like I was like some pariah attached. I was like, guys, I am good at dodgeball. I need to be on this team. And eventually I got picked up, and it was a running joke for probably 5 weeks that I did not have a team. But my team's going to pull it off. This next week, we're gonna crush everybody out there. So
yeah, we'll see.
Matt's got a team too,
yes.
So that's why he's doubting my abilities. So we started initially with this idea of student-led programs. We realized, the suggestions that we have, or their suggestions, they didn't know how to launch those and lead those programs themselves. And then we changed them over to student life programs. Right. The intent of our student life program really is to connect in a smaller group setting, because some of our audiences are like, the campuses can get pretty big sometimes, and it's hard to build in deep relationships in those places. So our idea behind student life programs, or our SLPs, is to build natural mentorship, build healthy coping mechanisms, build relationships with their peers, but in a smaller group setting. Right. Would you say that we were able to reach that while we're in those places?
Yeah, absolutely, because this isn't just time spent learning how to play football, or, even though it's going to be a dodgeball tournament, this isn't going to be the only thing we're going to be talking about or doing. There's definitely time in between the activities that we're just sharing our life experiences with one another. Student to student, student to leader, leader to leader. This is all of us together, just talking about life, sharing experiences. And this is experiences that we currently share with one another, so that in the future, when we've built relationships, we can look back on even these current experiences and continue to share life with one another, have something to talk about, and to continue to build our relationships, so that we can really invest in our students, so that we have those opportunities to share and let them know that, listen, we've walked through life together. We've had these experiences that I can speak into your life this way, and they're really open and vulnerable and accepting of those types of conversations, because we have experienced and we've done life together.
Yeah, I always talk about they give me the authority to speak into their lives when we're a part of the same club. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I run fishing club for us, which is, I've been doing that for 8 years. So even before Refuge, I've been running fishing clubs, because I found that it was a natural way for me to connect to kids that normally wouldn't have been involved with what I was doing, or maybe basketball wasn't their thing, but I could then take them out fishing and teach them something new, or spend time with them. And I can't tell you how many conversations we've had about God, about life, learning about really where they struggle, or things that they're really excited about, while we sit there on the side of a bank trying to catch a fish that's been elusive for about 3 hours. Yep. So it's a good experience for us as leaders to really know who we're serving. And I think that that's one part. One of the other questions I want to get into is, why do we need to do this kind of stuff? And I think one of the reasons why is, a lot of times we try to make a decision on what's necessary for kids, and why we need to connect to them, or why they need to hear whatever they need to hear on Wednesday nights or Sunday nights or Monday nights, or wherever else your time is that we meet. But we don't ask them, what they're struggling with. And we don't connect to them the way that I feel like could help them in different stages of their lives. So this gives me an opportunity to sit on the side of maybe even in a boat. A couple times we've been in a boat, but maybe inside that boat and be able to just say, you have my undivided attention. And Matt, you had expressed something before about feeling like the paid piece, right? Versus like deciding to volunteer. And I think a lot of that, what I mean by that is when you're in a place where kids feel like, yes, you have to be there. It's intentional that it's actually like your job to be here on Wednesday night, but then you choose to take your own free time and spend it with them, then the relationship grows differently. Right. So give me a couple of reasons, or maybe even something that you really see is why do we do this? Like, what is the point of it all?
Right. I think in reflecting about my past experiences, once again, I kind of saw it the same way as me coming through junior high and high school, growing up through Refuge, that I had the sense that, yes, my leaders are there on campus nights, but it looked like an obligation, even though I knew that this was like a volunteer basis. But I know, okay, every Wednesday, this leader's going to show up. It's kind of his or her obligation. But outside of that, it kind of broke that free a little bit. And I could see that, no, this isn't just a Wednesday night. This isn't just a campus experience. They really wanted to invest in my life. And when anybody knows somebody wants to invest in their life, it gives you an opportunity to open up, to become vulnerable, to share life with others. And that gave that to me, an opportunity to open up and to share with my own leaders. Now, knowing that as a current leader, I know that works. I know that letting them know that you're invested outside of campus gives them an opportunity to think and to know that, hey, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here outside of my volunteer obligations on a Wednesday night or whatever campus night it is. And that frees them up. That lets them know, hey, somebody cares. Somebody wants to know about my life. Somebody wants to know about me. And that gives them the opportunity to open up and become vulnerable and actually share experiences and share life with one another.
That's good. So let's talk about getting our volunteers moving. I know that we have struggled with this. It's not that we have a great volunteer corps,
yes, absolutely.
And they really are passionate for the kids that we work with. But then to get them to engage outside of that regular campus setting, what kind of process did you walk through? I know that we had talked a little bit about vision casting, but maybe kind of give them an idea of how we set an expectation for.
Sure. And this isn't just a Refuge problem, obviously.
No,
this is a problem across the board for any organization that has volunteers. Is how do you encourage them? How do you train them to become invested? And part of the problem is, okay, we need to find out what the students like, what are their interests, and then we need to somehow align their interests with the interests of our leaders, so that it can propel the whatever we're doing forward. The interests need to align. So a big part of this is talking to your leaders. This isn't just about doing life with the students, but it's doing life with one another as well. It's letting the volunteers know that you're invested in their life. It's kind of that top-down approach. So you do life with them. You find out what are they interested in, because someone who's interested in, playing dodgeball is going to show up and play dodgeball with the kids. So finding out what the volunteers are interested in, and then giving them ownership over it. It's not micromanaging them. It's saying, well, okay, this is your thing. How do you want to do it? How do you want to set it up? What do you want the dodgeball evening to look like? How do you want to roll with it? When they're there, okay, they're in charge. They're going to take up the reins. So I think it's finding out their interests and then giving them ownership and allowing them to take ownership and just roll with it.
Yeah, one time I heard Andy Stanley speak, and he said, if somebody can do it 60% as good as you can, you should be handing it off to them. Yeah. And so that's hard, especially when you're a staff member looking into volunteers and saying, well, we really want them to dedicate 40 hours a week to volunteering, but they're not paid employees and they're investing their free time to help the youth. And so we have to realize that there is a limit, there is a boundary that we should be able to take on, but to give them ownership of things like girls group. I mean, you and I, we can't run girls group, right? And I will not run a girls group. And this isn't like the TikTok thing Micah said. I will not run girls group. Yeah. But at the same time, recognizing that we have a great core of people that if we give them the opportunity to step up, sometimes they'll jump right up and take it, and other times you need to facilitate that growth and push them into that place gently, lovingly, encourage them to be able to step up to the plate, and maybe they'll do 10 times better than you will. So that's encouraging to me as far as this. Now, let me ask you this: you had shared your own personal story about how all these things outside of regular youth group kind of impacted your life. Like, what are we aiming for here? At the end of the day, I know going to work out with each other is a good thing, and it's going to teach kids healthy habits and things like that. But what are we aiming for when I talk about saying engaging outside of our Wednesday nights? What does Refuge focus on there?
Sure. Two answers I would say. I'd say one, letting them know that there are people in their lives who love them and who care for them and want the best for them. And two is letting them know that God is just as interested in their life. God loves them more than any person possibly could. And then when you let the people know that people around them love them and that God loves them, it opens them up and it acts as a catalyst in their life, and it's life-changing in that regards. For when they recognize that and when they see it, I feel like something changes in their life in that moment. When they grasp the fact that they're loved by God and they are loved by people, it's a life-changing moment, and it'll change the way they live the rest of their life, and I truly believe that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if there's not a focus on why we do what we do, and letting them understand that, you know, I remember growing up that there were adults that invested in me that I looked up to, that were even the moments of like when they took me to Wendy's and wherever else outside the regular setting, and they showed me that they loved me, and then they showed authentically who they were. When they were able to let me walk into their world and laugh with them and cry with them and be a part of them, I was like, well, is this what Christianity really is? Is this what relationship with other believers is, and do I want more of this? And obviously I say here today, I do want more of this. So, but I think that's for us, a lot of our kids, and I wouldn't say all of them, but a lot of them are still new to this whole principle of understanding what faith is. And sometimes you need to know someone so you can learn about what they know. Yeah. You know, and so I am in the place of, let's build that relationship, because there's going to be a moment where those leaders are going to become their youth pastor. Those leaders are going to be the ones that lead them farther than what a Wednesday night can do, or what a one-off sermon could do, or a special conference. Because when those things are all done and said with, who is investing to make sure that it's a part of it? We talk about bringing you to the table, right, and having a feast in front of you, but not eating is a whole different thing, right? So I'm encouraged by where we're going. Do you feel like there's a piece of what we do here that could carry over into other aspects of maybe like our relationships with volunteers? Like, how do we get that stirring to make them excited about SLPs?
Right. Yeah, I think so, because when they see the impact that this has for their own lives, I believe there's a certain amount of buy-in that they'll have continuing forward, because there's obviously kids that will come, every campus, but they'll be sitting in the same row every week, going through the same motions, doing the same things, but you can tell they're just not bought into it yet. So when they experience an impact like this for themselves, that's when they truly buy in. That's when, and when that buy-in happens and the leaders see it, and they get to either see it from the outside looking in, or they're part of that experience and they're part of the reason why that impact and that change has happened. There's buy-in from every facet, from the student the whole way up to, the youth pastor, to the staff. And I believe that's what sets the reason why we do things in motion. It's the reason why we continue forward. It's the reason why we continue to run SLPs, so that we can aim to impact the kid that goes through the motions every single week until there's an interest that really grabs him and then sets him into the motion of where we want him to be. And where we want him to be is recognizing the love that people around him have for him, and recognizing and realizing the love that God has for him as well. And I believe we continue to run SLPs. We continue to hopefully formulate new ones going forward that will capture a greater audience, and so that more kids will come to know the love of Christ in their life.
That's great.
Yeah.
So any last thoughts on SLPs? Anything about reaching out to kids outside of the Wednesday night setting?
Sure. Yeah, I just want to say, if you're watching this, we're always looking for new community partners to help make this a possibility so that we can reach more kids. There's talented artists in our community. There's talented musicians. There's all sorts of different talents that are happening just in our community that we as leaders can't do on our own. I mean, we're only limited in our own talents and abilities. So if you have a talent and ability and you want to become a community partner with Refuge Youth Network, this is me extending the invitation forward. Come hang out with us. Come hang out with the greatest kids you'll ever meet, and help us to make this a possibility and make this a reality for as many kids as we can in our community. And I think that would be amazing if you could do so.
Yeah, I would just mention one of the things that we didn't even talk about was that we make sure that this is all free to our kids.
Absolutely.
This is an experience that we try to drive home for them that is not going to, regardless of your socioeconomic class or your background or whatever else, we lay this down because we recognize that our community, one, finds value in teenagers, and two, that we need to find the value and help them grow. Pastor Jim from Transformation Church always talks about how much untapped talent that we have. Why not give them the opportunity to have that? Yeah. So we would encourage you to check out some more of our SLP stuff. We have on our website, there's a kind of a list, a laundry list of things that we've done in the past and things that we've done now on there. I wanted to take this moment to thank Park Home Furniture for the donations of this awesome set. It makes it nice and comfy in here for us. Absolutely. So that we can be able to sit at this table and have a conversation. But before we go on, I have a segment that I've done last time. I'm going to ask you again, okay? It's called Youth Builder, okay? I want you to think of anything that you've seen is from in youth setting that somebody DIY built that you thought was super awesome. Now, my little cornhole game was talked about last week already, so don't mention that one. Okay. So think of anything that you might have seen that through churches or other people that they've talked about that you thought was a cool toy that we needed to have.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I'm blanking on the name of it now, but it's a game where you get in the center of this octagon, right? Oh. And you hit the ball around and you try and it's kind of like a dodgeball.
Gaga ball.
Gaga ball. That's it. Gaga ball. So in a youth group that I volunteered with out in Eastern Pennsylvania at the Bridge Church, shout out to the Bridge Church in Hamburg, a leader there, he made his own Gaga pit, and he would bring it all the time, and kids would just love it. They would go gaga over it. So it was super clever, and anybody who knows who's looked for Gaga pits online, they are hundreds and hundreds of dollars, if not upwards to $1,000. But that's something that him and his talents and abilities, he just made one, and he brought it, and kids would love it, and we would play all the time. So was it like retractable? Like he could take it, put it down, build it back up? It would fold up, and it would have hinges, and he would just it was like a 3 or 4 piece Gaga kit that he built and he put together, and he easily accessible. Tear down is easy, and I just thought it was fantastic. It was clever. I didn't even know how much it cost at the time. Otherwise, it probably would have wowed me more. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually a little jealous. That's something I've been looking at for a while. And if you go and look online, I think the last time I looked for one that you could take and move to another place was like $600 or so. I could be wrong. You guys can correct me. Don't do it in the comments. So, hey, we want to challenge you this week to love God and make sure that you stay in your lane. Thanks.